What's up, family, and welcome to the Farming with the Fam channel. Today I'm going to show you how to make a worm compost bin. But first, let me go into some of the things you'll need to get started. You're going to need some kind of a ruler, a straight edge. You're going to need what my wife calls a zoom zoom, a drill, a trowel, some white bread. This is potato bread. It isn't really white bread, but it'll work. White enough. These are some worms. Can you see that? Some worms in there. You need some worms to get started. Sharpie, and some water, and some soil. So, let's break this down. It's a real simple process. This is just a regular bin. You can buy it at any box store. I don't want to name names, but you know where you can get one of these. Ignore the brand name. We're not sponsored by any of these people. Just a regular bin, nothing inside, no special tricks. But the first thing that I do is kind of mark off, I kind of section off, draw a little grid on this thing. Just draw a little grid quickly. Doesn't have to be perfect, but it's just to give you some markers. Oops. And it really doesn't, you don't have to do this. I kind of like my lines straight. And then what you want to do is you just kind of want to make a little grid out of this, right?
I'm probably won't even drill them off for now. Go back and do it later. I just want to show you how
to do this. And then what you want to do, once you've got some, you need some air in here, and you need some, some place for the liquid that builds up in here to drain out. So you just go in. It doesn't matter. You might be asking, won't the worms get through there? And some of them will, but most of them will not, because they'll want to stay where the food is. So this is how you go through and make holes, and then you'd want to flip it over and do the same thing on the sides too. Just make holes all around it so that there's enough air, because the air is important, because otherwise your food will become anaerobic. It means there's no air, and it's rotten. So now we've got our holes drilled, and what we want to do is add a little bit of soil to this. So now I'd like to introduce the helpers. That's all right. Tube is all you need, and we're just going to use this for the bedding. All right, and the worms initially don't actually know how to begin composting, even though they're composting worms, which are different from irregular worms. Number one, they reside closer to the surface, and number two, they have voracious appetites, so they're a little bit different from regular composting worms. And as you can see here, and I know some people are afraid of worms, but they're harmless. So what I always do to get them started is to include a little piece of white bread, and that somehow triggers them and teaches them that, hey, I'm in here to eat whatever is in here. And you can see I took these from my worm bin, so I had some blueberries that were in there. They were composting. But this right here is the key ingredient to get them started and to teach them how to start composting. So, and that's it. You want to pour a little bit of water to keep them up at the surface, and you want to make sure that you keep this off the ground. Because if it's on the ground with those holes in it like that, the vermin are gonna smell it and they're gonna be attracted to it, and they can chew right through this plastic. So keep it up off the ground with some bricks or something, and you also want to keep something underneath it to capture the liquid runoff. And that liquid runoff you use in your garden. It's great for plants. Your plants will love you. They will thank you for it. And the last thing you want to do is shred up some old newspaper and put on top, and then wet it down with some water. Are you ready for a wardrobe change? When you order worms, you can order as many as you like. You can order a pound. It might be 1,000 worms in a pound. I don't really know the equation, but it may be a few hundred. I don't know. But the cool thing about worms is if you happen to put too much food in here, they will multiply. They'll mate and they'll multiply to meet that demand. And if there's not enough food for them, they'll die off, and there'll be just enough of them to keep the worm bin going. It's a fascinating aspect of worm composting. The other thing is, you may be wondering, well, does it smell? No, there's no smell. If you're doing it right, it doesn't smell. That means that they are processing the food. It's not getting moldy. It doesn't smell, and there's adequate aeration. There's adequate oxygen in the system. If you fail at that, if you open up your worm bin and it smells, then you're doing something wrong. There's not enough oxygen in the system, and you need to make adjustments. Either take some of the rancid food out, or you could just leave it. Eventually it'll equalize, and it'll work out. But typically I just try to get any kind of moldy, rancid food out of there, because you don't want to attract vermin, and you don't want to attract fruit flies or other insects. As I showed you before, you add vegetable scraps, with the exception of citrus or any other acidic type plants like tomatoes. Now, some food scraps are a little bit too big, or too hard for them to process right away, and it takes a little bit of time. But what I do is I put it in a blender, and this is just a blender that I picked up at the Goodwill. I didn't go out and spend a bunch of money. Obviously, my wife wouldn't like it if I actually used her real blender, and yours probably wouldn't either. So go to Goodwill or some other place similar, get an old school blender, and you can put these big hard pieces of fruit or what have you in it and break it down for the worms, and they'll break it down that much faster. But I literally save all my food scraps, like coffee grounds. You want to, if you get avocados and it has these stickers on it, just peel that off. That's not good. They won't eat that. And it's okay. You can put the paper in there. They'll eat the paper. You want to spread it out. You don't want to put too many coffee grounds in there. I only do that every once in a while. I have some old potato skins. And this is all before you've cooked anything. I got a banana peel right here. Some stems from some leafy greens, probably some kale. And you just put it in. I'm just gonna dump this all in here right now. Oh, eggshells. They will break down eggshells. Now, if you boil your eggs, you don't really need to clean them out. If you're just using, you're scrambling some eggs and you got eggshells, you want to clean it out before you put it in there. You don't want your transmit. And you also want to crush these up. I typically will crush them up, crush these eggshells up. You can tell I like to get my hands dirty. I love this farming stuff. I love getting my hands dirty. Crush these eggshells up, spread them out in there, and they'll go to work on them. They'll break it down. Look at this, I got an old carrot in there. And it takes a while to break this stuff down, but I could also put this in the blender and break it up for them and make it easier for them, and they really just process this stuff a lot faster. And that's what I do. I'll drop this in here, spread it around a little bit so they all, and they don't, these are compost worms, so they don't mind being jostled about. I jostle them about and move them around and put them on top so that they'll bury down in there and get to work on this new food that I just fed them. And that's it. It's that simple. That's how you start a compost bin.
Everybody has to hold a worm.
Okay, that's fine.
But are you filming?
It's just a worm. They're harmless. Right? That's tough.
I want another one.
No, you don't.
Oh, one more.
Oh, I got 2. Yay! I like them. They're so friendly.
Hold them up.
Like this?
Like that, but I don't want to.